The Film Basement is filmed in sunny West Hartford, Connecticut, in front of a live studio audience.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Filmmaker's Basement. I'm Brandon Gasparino.
I'm Andrew.
And we're going to be looking into some of the movies we saw this week, in addition to playing a little game show later on. And to start off, the movie I went and saw this week was Candyman. For as long as residents can remember, the housing projects of Chicago's Cabrini Green neighborhood have been terrorized by a word-of-mouth ghost story about a supernatural killer with a hook for a hand, easily summoned by those daring to repeat his name 5 times into a mirror. In present day, a decade after the Cabrini Towers were torn down, visual artist Anthony McCoy and his partner, gallery director Brianna Cartwright, move into a luxury loft condo in Cabrini, now gentrified beyond recognition and inhabited by upwardly mobile millennials. With Anthony's painting career on the brink of stalling, a chance encounter with the Cabrini Green old-timer exposes Anthony to the tragically horrific nature of the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to maintain his status in the Chicago art world, Anthony begins to explore these macabre details in his studio as a fresh grist for paintings, unknowingly opening a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence that puts him on a collision course with his destiny. So this movie was kind of weird for me. Because I went in expecting like a straight up horror movie, like because the trailer makes it seem like that, with jump scares left and right, people like running away from this terrifying Candyman. And what I got was a movie that felt a lot more personal and a lot more meaningful than I was expecting. And this is going to transition to how I kind of feel about the movie, which is that it's a movie I can't really recommend to anyone. Like, I can't recommend you go out and see it, but I still think you should see it, if that makes sense. And I'll dive into what I mean by that in a bit. So at its base, Candyman kind of feels like a story about the commodification of black stories for white audiences. And what I mean by that is, so we're exposed to the story of the Candyman. Essentially, he's this guy who went around slaying people in like the 60s, and then was inevitably shot and killed by police officers during that time. Later on, the story is kind of used as the starting point for the movie. So this painter, he comes in, he's like, he doesn't have any fresh ideas for what he should be doing with his art. A lot of his art in the past was based off of black stories and like telling those stories for a wider audience, but to a degree it feels a little bit fake, if that makes sense. Where it's like he's just doing this because he knows the people who are looking to buy his paintings will want to see this kind of art. And so, on the verge of like his next big gallery, he's looking for a story to tell, and he's got nothing. Like, he literally has nothing. He's trying to like, we get a scene where he's trying to pitch like all these weird ideas he has to this art dealer, and this dealer's like, no, not really. Like, I'm not really interested in that. This doesn't seem like something that'd be up my regard. Then when that artist turns to, well, I want to tell a story about the projects that used to be here, and specifically this urban legend that was spawning from the time, the dealer's like, oh my god, yes, that's perfect. I love that. That sounds like the exact kind of thing we'd go for. And then that follows into our artist character learning about like the Candyman story and how like he's inevitably connected to it. But it all keeps coming back to he's telling the story primarily for a white audience. Like, if you go... When we go, there's a couple art exhibits that happen during this movie that primarily feature black artists and like their creations and stuff. But wherever we're there, the only people that are around viewing this art are white art dealers, essentially. It's like no, like, and they're not taking anything from this art itself. Like, these are people who are just there to be like, oh, that's really neat. Or like, at one point we get this girl who shows up in the middle of one of these art expositions. She's like a high schooler who's connected to the plot later on. But she's coming in here and like she just does not care about anything that's going on. Like, she's like, I'm here for like this project. Like, I don't really care about being here. Can we just leave? And it's like, wow, it's a really interesting vibe to bring up out of nowhere. Additionally, it's like, how do I put this? It focuses on how these stories tend to be kind of whitewashed in another way. Another part of this story is that, in addition to the Candyman story from the 60s, there was this other story about this woman named Helen. She was this white woman who was also interested in these Candyman killings, went out to try to like explore this in the Cabrini projects, and ended up kind of getting involved in the story herself. She became, how did they put it? Like, possessed by the Candyman and went around like killing people. She killed like a Rottweiler or something like that, was bathing in its blood, tried to sacrifice a kid in this huge pyre to like the Candyman himself, and then you find out later on in the story that's not what happened at all, and it was retold primarily for white audiences. So that kind of dives into this reason why I'm like, I can't really recommend the movie to anyone. It's because it's about this like very complex issue, and it's not like you're gonna come into this for like a lot of jump scares or anything like that. That was actually something I was surprised about, because the trailer really hypes up like there's these like jump scares, like it's a very scary movie, and it's not. It's just like a very kind of deep, like thinky movie about how black stories are kind of told in a culture that's primarily white. Additionally, we get like a lot more examples of this in the movie itself. The main character is a really good example of this, actually. He's this black artist who's trying to tell black stories for a white audience, but he's also very detached to it, and he comes off as like very white. And what I mean by that is in like the horror movie context, he takes the place of like the bold and brash white character, like the guy, like the football character for essentially in like a horror movie. Or no, what's a better way of putting it? He's like the teenager in a horror movie that's like obsessed with football, making out, all that kind of stuff, and will dive into danger at the first instance of like anything going on. The jock. Yeah, exactly. He fills that void out. And the way we see this initially is like in his obsession with the Candyman, he is initially like, I'm gonna summon this dude and see what happens, to like kind of play with the urban legend. And his girlfriend's brother, who is also there, is like, absolutely not. That is what white people do. Black people don't summon demons. That's not what happens at all. And it's this good little piece of commentary that happens in the movie that points out, like, yeah, this is really ridiculous. Like, this wouldn't be like how this would generally play out. Like, it's a white person thing to kind of do something stupid like that. And inevitably, he does summon the Candyman through his actions. But that also connects him deeper into the story, because as we find out, this person who seems, again, very white isn't. And has this whole past he doesn't know about, but because, like, he's this millennial living in a gentrified neighborhood, he has no way of finding out about that part of himself. Like, it got shut out in exchange for him being white and, like, kind of integrating himself into this community. So, with all that out of the way, I will say it's a Jordan Peele movie. It's very good. Like, he did an excellent job with it, like he's done with his other movies, Get Out, and I can't remember what the other one was before that. I think it was Us. Yes, it was Us. And it's still, again, like I've been saying, it has that vibe, like, of heavy social commentary mixed in with horror. But it's not as, like, openly entertaining as the last two. It definitely makes you want to think about the movie you're watching and why it's being told. So, again, it's Jordan Peele, very well shot. The story's very good, but like I said, I can't really recommend it because it's not like an entertaining style movie.
Well, it sounds like something I probably won't watch anyway.
No, that's entirely fair. It is a lot to go into, but
I didn't really see Us or Get Out either, even though I know Get Out was really good, and so was Us. I was just kind of like,
those ones have much different vibes.
I'm also not big on horror, so
and that's also very fair.
Yeah.
If you're not a horror person, I probably wouldn't see this, because while there aren't a lot of like super scary moments, they're definitely in the movie, and if you're not a fan of that, you should watch out for those. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, I can't really recommend this movie to a lot of people because it doesn't feel like a really entertaining movie, if that makes sense. Like, you're not going to go into it's not like a popcorn movie you're going into watching it. But I will say, if you want to, like, not quite educate yourself, but get like a different perspective on this kind of story, I would definitely recommend watching it.
So I kind of went in a different route, and I finally saw a movie that came out this week, because the last three movies that we've talked about together, going from last episode and then the first part of this episode, are movies that are a little new, a little older, that have been out for a little bit. So I saw at home because it was on HBO Max. Cry Macho. So it's Clint Eastwood acted, Clint Eastwood directed. I can't really say much anything else about it. It's a one-time rodeo star and washed-up horse breeder. In 1978, takes a job from an ex-boss to bring the man's young son home and away from his alcoholic mum. Crossing rural Mexico on their way back to Texas, the unlikely pair faces an unexpectedly challenging journey during which the world-weary horseman may find his own sense of redemption through teaching the boy what it means to be a good man. This Clint Eastwood needs to stop making movies, because
wow, I was not expecting that.
This movie was all over the place, and I hadn't seen a Clint Eastwood movie in a while. He's had 2 movies come out. I should say this: Clint Eastwood needs to stop making and being in the movies. Like, if he wants to make the movies, then make the movie, but like, put someone else in stop. You're 91 years old. Stop being a cowboy on TV and movies. Man, like, this movie jumps from one spot to the next in like the first 15 minutes of the movie. The first 15 minutes of the movie, here's basically what happens in the first 15 minutes of the movie. He goes to work and he gets fired from his boss. The movie then cuts to 1 year later. Like, and that's within the first 5 minutes. The movie then cuts to 1 year later, and his boss is in his house, or his ex-boss is in his house, and he's talking to Clint Eastwood about his son, who has been in Mexico, and he can't go back to Mexico. So he asks him, hey, I need you to go down to Mexico and get my son. And he's like, I'm not going to kidnap some kid in Mexico. And he's like, you owe me, after everything that happened to you with your wife and your kid, and with, you know, your injury when he was in the rodeo. And he's like, fine, yeah, I guess you're right. Like, I do owe you. So like, it was a complete like 180. Like, I'm not doing this. And then he's like, you owe me. And he's like, damn, you right. So like, he was like, and then so like, he gets in his truck and drives to Mexico, and then he gets to Mexico and he sees this huge house that he's given this address. Mind you, this is the first 15 minutes of the movie. So he drives to Mexico, crosses the border, and then he gets to this house, and it's this really nice house. It's this really swanky party that he's gonna essentially crash. And also, he's a cowboy from Texas, so he's wearing jeans and like this like rugged jacket and a cowboy hat. Totally like out of place. So like, he gets spotted immediately by these bodyguards for this party, and so these bodyguards bring him to this other room where nobody's in there. And then here comes this guy's ex-wife, who is the mother of this kid, and was just like, if you want to find my kid, you know, you're gonna have to find him on your own, because he's not here. He's probably over at the cockfights or something. He ran away. Like, he's a monster. He's a degenerate. Da, 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 da. And this kid's like 13. Like, so like and then he's just, and then she's like, saying all these things like, he's my property. Like, he can't have him. Like, the ex-husband or whatever.
I gotta ask you. So I'm a little curious about this, because you mentioned earlier Clint Eastwood has to stop acting. Was he particularly bad in this movie?
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. Like,
how bad?
So there's so when they're in this little village, right? They go to this restaurant or this cafe, and there is this, you know, I would say, well, I looked up the actress age, so I will tell you, it's 51. So there's this 50-year-old woman there, and she you know, the police like come into the town, so they duck into this little cafe, and she like turns the open sign to closed, and like, she, you know, basically like, no, I'll feed you, you can hide out here and whatever. And then so like, they eat like lunch at this cafe with this woman, and then like, Clint Eastwood's like, I'm gonna take a siesta, and I'm fairly confident that wasn't a scripted line, and he just wanted to take a nap, because he looked tired. And then there's just this awkwardness between him and this lady. And I mentioned Clint Eastwood, 91. This woman who we find out is a widow and has and her son-in-law and her daughter died as well from illness, so she's got 4 grandkids she's taking care of, like 4 granddaughters that she's taking care of. And there's this awkward sexual tension between Clint Eastwood and this woman. So it's like, picture your granddad hitting going to a bar and hitting on someone who is like your mom's age. Like, it's a very, I'm just like, can this 90-year-old man stop hitting on this woman who like is old enough to be my mom? Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh, stop, make the woman older. Like bring in an older woman. Like, so it makes sense. Or do it, or just Clint Eastwood hire a different guy. Like, just hire a different actor who can play the role. You just need a white cowboy. I could think of dozens of like 50-year-old white men that could pretend to be cowboys for an hour and a half. So, and also the movie is half in Spanish and there's no subtitles.
Huh.
So like there are points where there are subtitles in the movie when they're speaking Spanish, but there are a lot of points where there is no subtitles, and the only contextual clues that you get is from the kid, who's the 13-year-old kid that was with Clint Eastwood. He vaguely translates for Clint Eastwood, like in the movie. So like, so they're speaking Spanish, and then you just hear Clint Eastwood go, "What did he say?" And then like the kid like translates, and he's like, "Oh, basically this is what happened." And he was just like, "Oh, okay."
I mean, that doesn't sound like the worst directorial choice, honestly. Like, it kind of puts you in Clint Eastwood's shoes. But like you were saying before, this movie sounds like such a mess that it doesn't exactly benefit the plot itself. Like, if that were a plot device and there was no like subtitles throughout the movie, I could see that. Without the subtitles, you're just like, what?
It's hard when the kid's not around, because when the kid's not around and they're speaking Spanish, they have the subtitles. Okay. Because there's points where the kid's not around, and then you hear people speaking Spanish, and then so if there's no subtitles, you're like, well, I don't know what's going on. Like,
I feel like that could almost be an interesting thing to go through. Like, you're putting
you
Clint
say
Eastwood's
that now,
shoes,
and it sounds like a plot device that they may have
used.
Like, and
it sounds like what
because I didn't go to film school, so like, and you went to film school, so like you giving me a different perspective of, that's just like, that could be like a plot device. It's like you're putting the audience in Clint Eastwood's shoes, and I was like, that makes a lot more sense.
Yes, but then you said they had subtitles later on, so that's why I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, earlier and later on. Like, when the kid's not around to translate, there's subtitles. And even when he is around, there are some subtitles as well.
And that for me takes all the fun out of it immediately. And I'm just like, what's even the point? Like, you were trying to set something up. It clearly seemed like that, and then you immediately threw it away.
No, yeah. If you had no subtitles throughout the whole movie, and then, I mean, you can't really have Clint Eastwood every 5 minutes going, "What did he say?" Like, or "What did she say?"
But there's ways around that.
There's ways around it, yeah. Or like, you could have context clues or something else. But yeah, I don't know.
You can use like my thought immediately is like, body language can tell a lot of stories. Like, let's say Clint Eastwood listening to two people talk. Suddenly, a dude behind them like reaches for his gun. You're like, oh, something's about to go down. That makes sense. But they didn't do that by the sound of things.
Okay, it's free on HBO Max. If you have HBO Max, just if you watch it, it's like an hour and 40 minutes, and it's slow. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. It's slow. It's a little boring at times. It's not an action movie. It's a Western. Like, Westerns aren't action movies anymore, and Westerns weren't really action movies to begin with anyway. So like, they're slow. They're, being about a cowboy. Like, the most exciting part of the movie was them trying to tame wild horses. And that was one of Clint Eastwood's jobs when he was in that little town, when he was trying to repair his car, was he was taming this guy had all these horses, and he's like, can't train them because they're wild, they don't want to be trained. And Clint Eastwood was like, we can fix that. Like, and so he trained wild horses for this guy and got paid, and that's how he got the "I'm good with animals" thing when people would bring them their pets. So like, it was just like, it was weird.
So
like, it was
would you say would you recommend this movie to people, or would you just say it's not worth it?
I'm saying if it's free to watch, you can watch it. Like, it's a Clint Eastwood movie. Everyone likes a Clint Eastwood movie. I'm not saying go to the movie theater and spend $15 to go watch this movie. even though it was third in the United States this weekend in box office sales, behind I think. Well, I know Shang-Chi was 1,
Probably,
and I don't know what 2 was, but I mean, this was the big movie of this weekend. Like, this was the number 1 movie of the weekend. It was Cry Macho, and it did third, like, behind movies that are already out. So
yeah, let's get to everyone's favorite segment after we've discussed how we both were completely surprised by our 2 other movies, Pilot Wings. Okay, so, Andrew, you've played this game a couple times at this point, but for anyone who hasn't, Pilot Wings is a game show where I give Poulin 3 potential show log lines. 1 of them is fake, 2 of them are real. He has to guess which is the fake one that I wrote and made up. And to start it all off, it's every woman for herself on the country's most popular interior design game show. However, when one of their fellow contestants goes missing, these tough ladies are going to have to band together and show the American viewing audience what they're made of. 2. Based on the Israeli series created by Asi Azar, the drama tells the story of an unlikely romance between a blue-collar baker and an international superstar. Theirs is a relationship that not only upends their own lives, but the lives of their 2 very different families. And 3. What if the Bermuda Triangle was not a watery grave in the middle of the ocean, but a land lost in time that has trapped travelers over the course of human history? When a family is shipwrecked on this strange island, they must band together with a group of like-minded inhabitants from throughout history to survive and somehow find a way home. Now, I want you to keep in mind, I did something a little bit tricky this week. Of the 2 real shows, 1 of them didn't get made. It was passed over. So, it was an official pilot that was being circulated around, but no one actually ordered it to series. So just keep that in mind.
Oh God. Okay, so one of them is two of them are real pilots that were brought to brought to a network.
Yes.
And one of them is obviously fake. One of them that didn't get made at all, and the other one did.
Yes, but 2 of them were actual, like, they were pitch shows that were did not get.
One of them just didn't get picked up. One of them
exactly
got picked up.
I wanted to be tricky.
Let's see. None of these sound like official cable shows.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it definitely sounds like a Lifetime show or an ABC Family show or even a CW show, because that really messed me up the first time we did this, because I said that and it was a CW show or a TV movie.
Yes.
So I want to say C is definitely the one that was pitched but didn't get picked up, because that sounds a lot like some other shows, like Manifest, like Lost, like different other Lost at Sea kind of shows.
Okay.
What's that USA show, Shipwrecked, or what it was called? It was the Navy show that they did.
I think it's Shipwrecked.
Something like that. So I'm gonna say C is real but didn't get picked up at all. That leaves me with A and B, and B sounds, I mean, it says it's based on a different show from a different part of the globe, which sounds like it could, be, they did The Office UK and then they did The Office US. And that one definitely sounds a lot like a Lifetime show. So I'm going to say that one is the show that got picked up and made, and then A is your fake one.
Okay. Are you locking these in?
Locking that in. A, fake. B, show that was made. C, show that was pitched but not made.
Damn, you nailed it on all of them.
Yeah,
I gotta get better with making log lines. My last 3 have been like the exact same style.
Yeah.
I gotta get better with that. So yes, A was the fake one. B was the one that was picked up. It's called The Baker and the Beauty. I think it only got a season.
And what was it on?
I want to say it was like a CBS show or something like that.
Really?
Might have been. You might have double checked me on that.
Beauty.
And the last one I didn't have a title for because it was the one that was just passed over, but it was real. Okay, well, hopefully you had some fun playing along at home, and now that we've got Pilot Wings out of the way again, let's move on to some of the trailers that are coming out this week. And if we thought last week had slim pickings, oh boy, this week is even worse.
Mm-hmm.
There's like nothing coming out this week.
Mm-hmm.
Besides one movie, which I'm kind of interested in.
The only one, and we talked about it last week, the only one that looks like might have some promise, and I saw a trailer for it when I went and saw Free Guy. It's a movie called Dear Evan Hansen. It's a musical drama. It's a film adaptation of the Tony and Grammy award-winning musical about Evan Hansen, a high school senior with social anxiety disorder, and his journey of self-discovery and acceptance following the suicide of a fellow classmate. So that's the only one that's like... I mean, I'm not going to go see it, but it's like the only one on this list that's like, maybe. Like,
I'm a little bit interested in I'm Your Man. That sounds like something up my alley. So in order to obtain research funds for her study, a scientist accepts an offer to participate in an extraordinary experiment. For 3 weeks, she is to live with a humanoid robot created to make her happy. That sounds kind of unique to me. I don't know.
So the poster does not make it look like a science fiction movie.
No.
Like, the poster of this, it looks like a romantic like drama, a romantic, you know, just a chick flick, if you will.
Yeah.
So like, but then you read the synopsis and you're just like, humanoid robot, like this has got some sci-fi. And so like it's a comedy too, it looks like.
Yeah, it sounds funny. Like I love this as a concept. This sounds fantastic. So I'm like, I could be interested in seeing this. Like this seems like something I would love. It's got a cool premise, like that oh, what was that movie that came out a couple years ago about a guy living on an island with robots? I can't remember what it's called.
No idea.
Oh, I'm trying to remember. I gotta look.
It's also got an actress in it who I've never heard of and doesn't even have a picture on IMDb. Like her profile doesn't have a picture on it, and like there is like no movies on here. Like the majority of her movies, I think, are German.
Ex Machina. That was the movie I was thinking of.
Oh, that movie is terrible.
Oh, I love that movie. That movie is fantastic. That's my kind of stuff. And I don't know. I'm Your Man. This kind of reminds me of that. So I'm like, I could watch that. I'd be down for that. Alrighty, everyone. Well, on that note, thank you all for watching and listening to our podcast. Andrew, we've been forgetting to do this. Do you have anything you want to plug?
So we haven't done it in a while. That's why I haven't really plugged it. My co-host. So I host and produce a podcast called Sports and Nonsense. If you haven't heard of it, we talk about sports and we talk about random stuff. We mainly talk about sports. We're right at the beginning of the NFL season, and my co-host started a new job and had to give up his company computer, so he hasn't had a computer in the last couple weeks, but he finally got a new computer for his new job. And he finally got Zoom downloaded because he couldn't download it before. He had to get an IT guy to unlock it for him. So next week, we'll be doing the podcast again, and we'll be recapping the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. We have a lot to talk about. So there's previous episodes you can go listen to if you want to go listen to it. It's called Sports and Nonsense. It's on this YouTube channel under the Sports and Nonsense playlist, and you can also find it on the audio version on Spotify, iTunes, iTunes, and CastboxFM, which is actually where I post this podcast. So if you're listening to this on audio, go and listen to Sports and Nonsense too. It's in the same playlist. So,
well, be sure to check that out. Be sure to check out other Name Pending Productions content too. I know Jimmy put his DD214 commercial up a few weeks ago, but it's still funny. Check it out.
I still have to record some stuff for him, which I don't know if I'm gonna have time now that I'm starting school again. So
busy time. And I'm not doing anything at the moment, so I got nothing to plug. But thank you all for watching. I'm Brittany Gasparino.
And I'm Andrew.
And thank you for stopping on by the Filmmaker's Basement. We'll see you all next time.